Well, hello, everybody. And yes, we even have furry friends joining us on today's call. So it's going to be special. Um, and it always is. And it's, I felt something with Lisa the second she came on the pre-call before we start live. And there's something potent running here. And the messaging, we talked about where we're going to go. And of course, we always let spirit and the energy drive it. But what's coming through is spectacular. And I'm still feeling the buzz of the connection and what's becoming available. So Lisa's going to take us in, and she is like an authority on the Akashic. And today we're talking about simplifying your ascension using your Akashic records and quantum healing. But we're going to approach it from different ways that are going to slowly, I believe, and can actually feel, are going to start cracking stagnant energy that we may be holding and just open up to the flow of this grace and these energies and this wisdom and this light that is wanting to run through us that somehow has been hardened through a lot of different factors. And again, we'll get into that into the call. And I'm not going to talk a lot because I want to open it up to Q&A as well. So just get ready for a phenomenal call. Lisa's special offer will go deeper into a little bit later on the call, but it's opening up the Akashic records to really overcome your limiting beliefs around money. And for me, if it's around money, it's regarding self-esteem. It's about relationships. It's about so much else, but to pinpoint the money aspect as an opening point and then releases everything else is extraordinary as well. So we'll get deeper into a special offer a little bit later. And I'm mentioning it now because it's really discounted at what Lisa typically offers it at. So I just want to make sure that before you hang up from today's call, that you give yourself the opportunity to look at it and resonate, because there's so much that's being shared there. So let me give a little bit more information about you, Lisa, before we get started. So Lisa is internationally recognized as a best-selling author of The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records and From Questioning to Knowing, 73 Prayers to Transform Your Life. Her brand new third book, oh my God, Lisa, I don't know how you write all that so much. Awaken Your Life Purpose, Understand Your Soul Plan will be available this fall on Amazon. Lisa is also the founder of Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom, where she has taught thousands of students worldwide to access personal soul wisdom and guidance to transform their life. And with more than 25 years of experience in spiritual healing, Lisa teaches these simple tools which empower individuals to find greater fulfillment, happiness, abundance, and health. Lisa helps you align with your soul path, understand your soul contracts, and complete your karma and vows. And I have to share one more thing, Lisa, before we go live with you. The last time I saw Lisa, we were actually living probably like 5 miles apart and didn't even know it. And like a year and a half that I lived in Marin County, I missed out on hanging out with Lisa. So last time I saw Lisa was almost a year and a half ago at the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles. And it was wonderful to connect. And I was amazed at how many people kept going to her booth, not just to get information, but how she was booked solid from morning until evening with private sessions in that. And I always knew Lisa was kind of a badass. You could always feel it, but the confirmation and how people are resonating. And I've had readings with Lisa, which have been extraordinary, but the wisdom that she brings in and the guidance from the Akashic is really second to none. So I'm happy that y'all are here. And Lisa, I'm so happy that you're joining us again. It's been a while.
It has, and I'm thrilled to be back. And hopefully I'll get to see you soon in California. So
yeah. Sure. Now I have to go. I mentioned the piece that you're wearing, your necklace, and
I know people can see it. It's too shiny. Yeah.
It's transmitting so much energy as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that piece, where it came from, and your guidance of why you wound up in that particular place?
So this is the goddess Isis from Egypt. And I was in Egypt exactly a year ago. Well, actually September, so touch more than a year ago, but during COVID. And I love to travel. Nothing stops me too much because as long as I'm guided by the Akashic records, I do whatever they tell me to do, like write another book, right? I have not learned how to say no yet. So, I have always wanted to go to Egypt and just was kind of waiting. You know how you sometimes feel like I'm waiting for the perfect moment, for the perfect guide, for the perfect group, whatever that might be. Had been waiting pretty actively for about 3 years. And I got an email in August of last year, and they said, we're going, Egypt is opening up. It was about one of 4 countries that we could get into from the US. They were opening up September 1st. And I just was like, yes, I'm going. And so, I said, yes, I had the super funny thing to me is that I do stuff very unconsciously. I had apparently put myself on a waiting list, which I totally forgot about. So to go with Freddie. So when it showed up, I was like really surprised. But of course, all of that other information that I'm always downloading is like, oh, go do this. I'm like, okay, not really consciously sometimes putting those seeds out into the world. And I think that's important that we start to realize how we plant seeds. Sometimes it takes a month and sometimes it takes, 10 years before they come to fruition. But it was one of the seeds I had planted a year or so earlier. And so 20 of us went. We were about the first tour into Egypt. We went to 18 sacred sites, and we actually were the only tour bus there, which means that we could sit in these temples and pyramids for 2 or 3 hours at a time with no one else there.
Amazing.
To just meditate and hang out in the energy. And let me just say how many photographs I took, 2,000 photographs later, I still haven't gone through them all. But the energy was phenomenal because all of these temples were closed down for 6 months. And so we were, again, literally, they had been resting, and like it felt like they were clearing and releasing all of the activity that had been happening there for probably many, many years. And they felt kind of like going into the void, which is my experience of opening the Akashic records. You go into this open, expansive energy, and you have the time and the space, because there's no one else there, to sit and say, what can I receive? What can I share? What can I really give back to these temples? Because what I know is that so many of us, probably all of us, carry codes and information that we're often sprinkling back around the world, especially people who really have that kind of call to travel, that feeling of being so galactic. And I knew that I had keys and codes, especially there was some energy work I was doing in Karnak with healing some of the ancient Karnak wars and the galactic Karnak wars, and just really receiving just phenomenal connection with Sekhmet there.
Yeah.
The whole thing, it just kind of went from place to place to place. I found a sacred site that very few people go to, and of course I'll draw a blank on the name, but it may pop in, where I walked in, and it almost looked like there were carved out spaces about the size of books in all the walls. Like it had been a library, but somebody had taken and removed all the books.
Wow.
And when I walked in there, that energy in the codes, it just starts to light up in my whole body, right?
I can feel it.
Wow. Started downloading, and I just walked through like one palm up. It just felt like it was streaming through. And then I just was like writing light language, rewriting codes and rewriting books and rewriting history somehow. It was mind blowing. So what I picked up there, I know I I still have some aspects of that that hasn't even downloaded into my body yet. I felt like I came back with just this huge kind of balloon of energy behind me that was kind of waiting to really slowly kind of filter in the appropriate time, right? And so it's been doing that for the last year. And then by going also then to Chichen Itza in January, and then I went to the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun in May. And so within 8 or 9 months, I was at 3 pyramids, in more than 3 pyramids, but on 3 continents. And I could feel some of that energy shifting because we are realigning the pyramids and all of these amazing pyramid codes. And so it felt just kind of phenomenal to walk through this from Egypt to Chichen Itza and then to the Bosnian pyramids.
Oh my God, that is amazing. As you're speaking of it and you describe the temple with the bookshelves, I felt a surge of energy running through me and down me, like I was receiving your download. And this for me, just I want to iterate it for everyone listening. The value of us sharing our stories and those experiences, and you receive a download being there, but by you transmitting it, we have the opportunity to receive information also, and it's powerful and it's shifting us tremendously. So the Akash is becoming this living organism. Not that it hasn't been, but our bodies are learning how to attune and translate it perhaps in ways that we haven't experienced before.
Right. Yeah. Well, I completely agree that, part of the whole alignment now, and the fact I was talking with the record keepers the other day, of course, I'm always talking to them, but they were saying, really, when they asked me all the years ago that they said, would you help us re-anchor the Akashic records here on Earth, because we had pulled the energy away 1,000 years ago. And so it was interesting to understand that the energy had been on Earth for probably ever, and they pulled it away because it was being misused during the Dark Ages. And that was really one of their first kind of big requests to me, to start the school and help them re-anchor this Akashic energy, pull it closer to Earth. And so just looking back 20 years ago, when I first started talking about the Akashic records to, more people that were not just in kind of my little spiritual world, that to now see almost every place I go and everyone I talk to, they know what the Akashic records are. They've had a reading. Many of them have read my book or someone else's book or taken a class. It's phenomenal in a short amount of time how it is anchored and how we feel it. And a lot of that is part of, because we have this higher energy light coming to the Earth. But part of it has to do with what we're doing to rewrite the codes and release a lot of the old, matrix and energies and programming, which is really part of what we do, or part of what I do, certainly when I'm traveling.
Yeah, I want to get into the energy that's been stagnant through the words and through the media, through COVID and all that in a second. I don't want to, and I'm mentioning it now so I won't forget later. But just for a simple overview for anyone who may not be familiar with the Akashic or maybe doesn't feel like they have a proper interpretation, we describe the Akashic and then the access that you have to it and how you translate it.
Of course. So the Akashic records are the recording of your soul's journey throughout really all time space continuum. So from the moment a soul individuates from source, we begin a journey somewhere, never on Earth, but somewhere, many places, planes, and dimensions. We are all star seeds, honestly, right? I don't believe that there is anyone who hasn't lived in other planets, planes, and dimensions. Because of all the, 10,000 readings I've done, I don't see people as human. I see we come here to learn. But so we have this huge library because we've traveled so many places and done so many things. So all of that is held in the etheric energy of source And of course, as part of that is part of the quantum field. And because the records are part of the quantum field, what we can do is we can rewrite, we can really shift some of the energies that are held in our own Akashic records. So if we're holding a lot of emotional pain and trauma because of some really challenging past lives, we actually can transform that, because there is no such thing as time and space. And it shifts us in this life, in this very moment. And so before we embody, we always write a soul plan. We choose to have partnerships with numerous people. We choose to bring gifts and talents back with us. We choose to have challenges so that we can actually learn more, because that's our goal as a soul. Learn more, right? We're in perpetual school as souls. And so there is so much information for everyone in their Akashic record.
Excuse me, I just sneezed there. And I love the way that you describe it and you simplify it and the information. And I think collectively the Akashic is shifting also. We're authoring a different version, if you will, of a timeline that we're creating access to. And again, receiving codes for that, which again, perhaps we decided collectively or was decided galactically that we couldn't have access to because it was being misused. But we're getting into the stage of reactivating, recoding, and reauthoring what has been written. And a lot of that has to do with the consciousness that we're receiving, the alignments that are happening, the integrity of the energy, but also with what I want to call an awareness of ourselves as a part of the whole, as opposed to being separate of the whole. And I'm wondering what you're seeing in that collectively, but also with the people that you're working with individually, and how a lot of us may have felt over the last couple of years with this pandemic thing, a sense of stagnation, where I really felt that more as a sense of a gestation that was needed as we reset into rewriting these codes. That was a lot there, right? I know you're following. Yeah.
Right. And then we never know what tangents I'll go off on, you know.
Exactly.
So really what the record keepers are saying is that it really is time for us to own the fact that we are these ancient and infinite souls. And we have been writing patterns and creating, we're creator beings. And I can remember lifetimes way before I was human, where I was really just that. I show up kind of in my my imagination, in my records, as kind of this very weird, big etheric being creating worlds. And I always think that seems so crazy because I can't, you know, relate to it particularly as a human. But I know it's the truth anyway, right? So what the record keepers are saying is that we are all creator beings. We have created this, not the world as in physical per se, but in this realm that we live in. We have created our stories and this matrix, and we have coded kind of ourselves into a mess. So we could learn, because there was nowhere else like this. And we're like, let's make a place where we can really learn stuff instead of being hanging out in bliss all day, right? So, you know, when we can own the fact that we are phenomenal creator beings, and we have done everything in the world, you know, good, bad, right, wrong, and indifferent, right? We have created some not pretty stories, as well as beautiful worlds and communities and lives. And so we really come, if we can see it as play, I really, you know, like to kind of look at it that way. We say, we're going to come to Earth and we're going to play here and we're going to learn and we're going to grow and we're going to do all these wild things. And many of them are what traumatizes us as a human. And so if we can, you know, take those energy shifts and leaps into these higher vibrational expansive energy of the Akash and say, oh yeah, I can see I've been all of that through all time space continuum. And life is really so short in the scheme of everything, infinite worlds, right?
Right.
And then we can own the fact that we've actually come to transform it. And so right now it is more important than anything else for us to stand up and be, okay, I am going to heal myself so that I heal all of my community in the process, in my group contracts, and it ripples out through humanity. And, that's what I've seen. When the record keeper said to me, help us anchor the Akashic records back on the planet, help us bring this back to humanity. And I thought, that's insane, because that's 6-7 billion people and I'm one. And, but 20 years later, it's not just me. Like they said, we're asking lots of people to help us, right? And we start to see these shifts. And I can see it because I spend all my time in these, spiritual realms. And so I notice it, but it's actually true for all of humanity. No matter what it kind of looks like, if you watch the news, we are raising our vibration. We have more light here. We have a higher level of consciousness than we did 5 years ago. And certainly than we did 50 years ago or 1,000 years ago.
Right. Amazing what comes through in the realization of that. And I like that you talked about the trauma aspects of it also, because when trauma happens from a soul level, we'll experience soul loss or energy leaks or disassociation of power centers of where our light gets them. And so part of the work that you do also is to help us work and understand and have relationship with the limiting beliefs that cause that separation and allow the soul reintegration or sealing up the energy leaks, if you want to call it that, or maybe it's both. And really bringing us back to an action taking ability that was diminished because of events that seem to have taken something away from us. And so our perspective around that through the work that you do really shifts dramatically.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. That's what I see, because especially through, let's just say, the last 1,000 years, let's make it a little bit more finite. I consider 1,000 years pretty finite. The trauma we've experienced, really, and the level of energy was so low that even if we look back, 1,000, we were trying to heal the planet. We were working as, on our soul projects to try and bring more light here and try and make, these shifts and try and wake people up. But there wasn't the light on the planet. And so often we would get our energy or our power from other resources, which could be like the dark or the not so light, right? So we've had these experiences and we get very entangled in our stories, kind of weirdly, even as a soul. So I always find it interesting that even when we get out of these bodies and we go back, whether we go to soul school or some of us go off and, be angels and help more humans or go off to other planets, whatever we decide to do, we can see that truth. But what I notice is that the soul holds a lot of that energy, which has been creating soul splinters, right? Trauma can splinter a piece of the soul off because of a very nasty death or, some really action that was so traumatic to the person, it was traumatic to the soul. And so we lose aspects of our soul and we have these kind of scars and this pain and all of that energy turns into kind of really, whether it's splintered, then it's separate, right? So then we have to do a soul retrieval to bring that back in, or it gets locked down. It almost looks like it gets stuck in these kind of balls of energy that we can't break into normally. We just don't know how. We don't see it. We don't notice it. And so to me, with the assistance of the Akashic record keepers, we can start to dismantle those, traumatic pains, those energy balls that keep us stuck in old beliefs, even though may not even experience it now, right? So all of that old stuff that shows up, we can actually start to work on because we can see it from that very big quantum space and shift it because we're in that space, because we now have that ability to be there and do that.
So wonderful. I love the way that you're describing this. We're going to get into Q&A in a little bit. So if y'all want to ask your personal question, you may want to raise your hand or type your question into the chat or Q&A box. And so we'll get into that.
Let me just say, I promised in my email to do some group healing. And I always find it to be so powerful to open the group's records and start to shift some of this, because this has really turned into probably my favorite thing to do. Because when we come together like this with a group, and we all have these pieces, some of them codes, some of them, matching energy. Some of us have soul contracts with each other and we haven't even met each other, right? We've got all these ancient contracts, group contracts. So we can actually start to do some healing and make some of that shift easily when we do that work as a group. So I'm always excited about doing that too.
Oh, we're definitely going to get into that. Yes, definitely that. I was going to seg into the Q&A, into the special offer by asking if you can teach people or give them demonstration or share how they can access their own Akash. But maybe before we go there, how about we just go into a group process right now so people can begin to feel the flow, and then we can get into the more linear aspects of it.
Perfect. Yes. So I will just bring you all into the records with me, and we'll do this in kind of a similar way that I teach, because I teach using a vibrational key, which is a sacred prayer. And so we will do that as a group. We'll all come together in this Akashic field, and then we can do some clearing. We can just release whatever we decide to talk about, so it's one of those lovely things because it brings the energy all together. And then as we talk about them, we can actually remove some of the things that no longer serve us and bring in the things that do. So let's just start with a nice deep breath as we drop down into our sacred heart. Breathing into your heart, just inviting it to expand a little bit further. And we ask the divine lords of unconditional love to help us center fully in this moment as we create this sacred space. Please wrap us in your love and protection and allow us to travel to the highest realms of the Akasha available to us today. Please help us. We lay our multi-dimensional hearts open to divine love and release all resistance. Lords of the Akashic record, please guide us to the deepest truth we can access now. Support us in healing and releasing that which no longer serves on our true path. We give great thanks for your divine love and support on this journey today. And just start to notice this energy as it swirls around, bringing us together all around the world. Sometimes it actually kind of looks like a huge column of light that encircles the whole earth, because I know we're all over the planet. So you may feel that kind of wrapping you in the beautiful, unconditional love of Source, of the Akash. Good. All right. So let's just see what we want to work on, heal, what feels like it's feels like there's some group contracts that want to be let go of just as the first thing they're just wanting to do right away. So kind of as I was talking about past lives where we access the dark instead of the light, they just want to unweave all of those soul contracts. So we'll literally, I burn the contracts because they're done. They're from other lifetimes, other stories, other dimensions. So we actually create a nice little bonfire of Akasha contracts and burn them up. But then we also want to kind of unweave. There must be some other word for it, but I never get it. So it looks kind of like sometimes like I'm pulling threads out or unweaving something instead of weaving it. Oh, nice. Oh, and I just am seeing there's a bunch of people on the call who have angelic ancestry. And I'm starting to feel some like this unweaving of the dark energy and accessing that is actually letting them break their wings out. So I'm feeling it really strongly in my back and opening all of our angelic lives, our angelic energy to kind of bring that back in to also support us in a higher way. And then, I don't know, it kind of cracks me up because the codes, as they drop in, kind of look like the Matrix images. You're like, I feel all these codes coming down. And they're just bringing in new higher vibrational codes because they're saying, that is not the truth of who any of us really are. No matter what we called on, no matter what we did, it's not the truth of who we are. So they're releasing and rewriting all of those codes for us. So that feels really, really good. It feels really strong. Good. All right. Let me just kind of ground that in. Anchor it down into our bodies, into our physical bodies, so we can let it integrate later. I find things integrate usually over a few days. Good. Oh, that felt very helpful. All right. So what else is showing up to work on?
Interesting. Are you asking me or are you waiting for the information?
No, I'm actually asking you because I see there's a bunch in the chat. Is there anything that people are asking to do? That's why it's kind of fun to go into a group because they have different stuff than I do, right?
Yeah, great questions.
Yeah.
They're talking, some people are asking about their soul plan and the Akashic records. And so maybe even tapping into or having access to greater clarity of that soul plan would be wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm almost seeing them form like little booklets, which is kind of cute. So before we embody, we say, I'd like to have, 50 or so, 25, 50 really important relationships, deep, powerful relationships. And so we do write a lot of soul contracts with people who are from our soul family or who we've had other lifetimes with. And sometimes those other lifetimes have left incomplete stories. And so we say, I want to come back and complete that story. That's really what karmic patterns are about. They're completing a story so we can learn and grow from whatever that story was teaching us. And so we often have relationships, many different lifetimes. And often with soul families, we will kind of play through all the stories. I'll be your mother this time. You'll be my mother next time, right? I'll marry you one time. You'll be my brother another time, right? So we have lots of different connections, very deep connections. And some of it plays over in different lifetimes, but often, of course, because we have amnesia, we totally forget about it. And so it's all brand new. And we get all upset, or we get jealous, or we get, or we fall in very deep, deep love. And the interesting thing, even with that kind of, to me, very pure love, sometimes it's just there to remind us that we can experience that we truly are that. And it's less about a relationship and more about a remembering. And so sometimes we have that with a parent. Sometimes it's, with a spouse or a best friend, right? It can show up in any different kind of way. But what one of our huge soul contracts and group contracts is about is remembering love, right? Remembering pure, unconditional love, remembering that we actually are that at our core. And it's not something we have to do or learn. It is who we are and can be, right? So it shows up really in our relationships when we can keep dropping back into our heart. And they're just, as we're talking, they're kind of, you always see my hands wiggling around, and they're just clearing what they can clear for the group as they, disseminate some information, bring up the energy so that we can get hold of it and release it. But they're really talking about wanting everyone to know every single relationship is about love. It is about reclaiming that aspect of you that is pure love and sharing that with the world. And they're saying that is really truly how we will flip the world, right? All awaken is through that pure consciousness of love. And so, of course, everything that is not that we can let go of. I ask the record keepers of the group to kind of disconnect, dismantle, release any and all of the, I'm just hearing a lot of kind of some of the old programs around jealousy, which is an interesting program. They're doing a lot of work around that because it's been in the kind of the feminine, divine feminine paradigm forever. I sometimes talk about the fall of the goddess temples and how we went from being goddesses to, being slaves or prostitutes. And that energy of jealousy is what kept us alive. Wow. And kept us kind of fighting to be alive. Or I think we all just would have quit and died. I mean, that's right. That's what I always feel. So just letting all of that go so we can just love our sisters, right? Love each and every one of us, love each other in every way. So they're just wanting to kind of clear what stops us from love. Yeah.
Wow.
Whew. That feels good.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
There's other questions coming in, but is that thread of love still rolling through? I have to share an experience I had today, which is so beautiful. I went to go visit my daughter at work for lunch. I just dropped in and to go say hi. She's 5 months pregnant, and she was sitting down, and I go in and say hi, give her a hug, and it's like, can I put my hand on your belly? It's like, yeah, of course. Because I wanted to, it's like, have you been feeling the baby? It's like, yeah, it's moving a lot. It's really weird. It's like, oh, can I feel? And I tuned in and I just closed my eyes and paused for a second. And I felt this surge of energy running up through my hand, up into my shoulder and into my heart. And just tears just started pouring. I could feel the interconnection with this child that was there. And it was so pure and so powerful, not seeing it as this fetus or as this baby, but as this powerful being that's sharing an energy with me. And the love it's just in that pure connection It's not pure because it's a child. It's pure because it's this infinite being. I don't, I want to be really clear about that. But in the understanding of that was so profound for me. I've been running on high with that for most of my morning and late morning and afternoon as well. But that's unraveling through that connection of love and how it's demonstrating itself in my reality and what you're expressing now. It's so profound.
That is so beautiful. And all these babies, oh my gosh, they're really going to save the world. That's what I always get, that they have come to help us, and they are just very pure. And it's so lovely that, the record keeper started saying many, many years ago that karma, all these old karmic patterns have been cleared in the higher realms, right? And so we just have to get it. Yeah. We have to get out of our silly human, story and get it. So you got that
thing that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah, right. And you got that feeling of being able to touch really that infinite soul that will be your grandbaby.
For sure.
And we are all that. So if you can touch that in yourself, then there we're bringing it right back
and carry it forward. Be willing, have the courage to carry that sentiment forward for your own sake to experience, but for the selfishness, right? The selflessness gets emitted as well. Yeah. And so we start building upon that rather than contain it, rather than keeping it stagnant, rather than not knowing what to do with it. So it's so wonderful. I wanted to share that as, again, what was being shared on through your transmission was coming in. Mm-hmm. The money questions coming in, and how can we break patterns around money and to receiving more there as well. The relationship with money.
Yes. And money is so complicated, right? It is not just one simple little thing. We don't have one issue. We have issues for many, 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 many lifetimes, and not to mention, our ancestral lineage and all that other energy that affects us. And so what I'm hearing is to do some group work around the ancestral lineages. Because that is so much of what we're just purely unconscious about, right? We don't know what our great grandparents were doing or thinking or what their experience was. And yet that energy, it's kind of so fascinating the way we've set this whole paradigm up, that we can take on a lot of their energy. And the thing that I've always found fascinating is curses. That we have a lot of curse energy in our world, because it goes back to the dark magics and manipulating people. So being able to go back and clear and release all of these curses. So
and agreements that were made unconsciously, which are part of the curses also, based on previous family lineages that we're still carrying the burden of that agreement.
Right. And right. And again, then we take on other people's karma that we can't heal anyway. So we're kind of stuck with this load of energy that is also affecting us. So lots of layers. And of course, when we talk a little bit more about the package, that's really what I do in that package, is go through and spend 6 or 7 hours or something like that, just healing all of these levels and layers. So, but let's do, those family lineages really want to be cleared up. And they're saying really it's so important to clear them up really now, because we want these babies born into more pure families, pure lineages. And so that we're not dumping all that old stuff down on them, right? That we're over it, that is not the energy we're running through us either. So we're not passing it on energetically, right? So it's always important that we realize we are so magnetic that whatever we're being is what we're magnetizing. And it's true with other people. So they match us energetically. So the higher energy you can be for your babies, for your family, for your friends, for your community, for the whole world, let's say. But when we start looking at the smaller circles, how important that really is to to be that light for the next generation. So they remain pure and clear and really can, I think, make a really fast job of shifting a lot of what we see that we can't imagine how to fix, because I think they know how to fix it, and that's why they're coming. So let's clear those lineages around money and any other garbage we can let go of. Yeah, they're saying too, they want to do some health stuff. I've seen a couple of health questions pop through chat. And so a lot of our health, issues get passed down also, of course, through our family lineage. So, I always find it interesting because, my whole life, because I was born really awake when I was 3 years old, I realized I was trapped in a body and I was not happy about it. I always think I've never really been very happy about being here. And yet I have a great life and I'm very happy. But I always think all those lifetimes, all those last 2,000 years, I always think, oh my gosh, it was so weighty. It was so challenging. That's what I always see when I start working through those ancestral lineages. And whenever I think about Earth, I realize I think many lifetimes and I think, ugh, really? But yes, that's why to me, it's so important to do that healing for ourselves and for me to do that for other people. That's why I'm so called to help to clear it. So the soul lineage to me kind of, I don't know why, I just, it looks kind of like a weird long tube of energy. And it seems to, once it's hooked into us, into our DNA, into our genes, it seems to always want to continue flowing from as far back as we can go. So I asked the record keepers to help us because we've opened the group records. That means that each person has their record keepers here with us. And so we asked them to go back to the first 2 people of each listener's family lineage and to start to clear down through the lineage all of the beliefs that block us from being abundant souls, and really abundance of all kinds, abundance of course, money, but love and health and vitality, really of joy. So just working through. So if people are heating up, it really is. I am always cold, right? And right now I've got the door open and I'm sweating and I never sweat. So I'm like, wow, there's a lot of heat coming through here. There's a lot of this.
That also, yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sweating. I don't sweat. My kids would just totally laugh. They'd be like, what? You're always cold. That can't be. I'm like, but it's almost like fire. It's kind of interesting. It almost looks like kind of like liquid fire burning out all of this garbage down through our family lineages, all of the blocks, all the fears, all the judgments, all those curses that are connected to money, and any and every part that we can clear around kind of health and vitality. Oh, we can just, I like to burn it out. I'm a big fan of fire. Now they're like pouring in the beautiful aqua, kind of, it looks like aqua cold water.
That's so interesting. I'm so connected to you right now. It's crazy. Wow.
It's all this almost like cold water, dousing all the flame, washing away all of the residual anything, ash, recycling it all for the highest good of all concerned. Whew, that feels better. All right.
Wow.
Nice. Good. Whew.
So interesting for me because when you first started speaking into that, I felt like this glass ceiling that so many of us have seemed to hit. It's like it can break out, but and I started seeing the shattering
Mhm.
of the glass around and then opening up. And as you went deeper into it, not just the roof of it, but really the structure of that, we'll call it the dome around us, that glass that would keep us contained, that we couldn't feel like we can, we're knocking on the window, but we can't get through the other side. And I felt the collapse of that. And I was following the orange, the red running through before you said it, and then the coolness afterwards. So this is
Yeah.
amazing.
Nice. I love that. I know it's kind of mind blowing to me, I have to say, because, when I teach people to access their records, the record keepers have given me 6 access prayers, actually more, but 6 main ones that I teach. And almost everybody has the same experiences with each specific prayer. And I don't know how many years it'll ever take me to kind of get over that, but it's interesting that so many people have the same experience, and it's because they're connected to like Arcturus or the Pleiades, and those places have stories too. And it's always phenomenal how even brand newbies remember those stories because they've lived there and they have those experiences. And they're like, I don't like that prayer. It's scary. I think I died there. And it's like, oh, that would be likely. There was a lot of wars there.
Wow.
It always kind of blows my mind how kind of expansive and connected we really, 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 really are. Right. So, yeah.
So
Fun.
beautiful what comes through. Lisa, I'm going to take a few moments before we take live calls and as the energy is still flowing to really get into your special offer, because at the price that you're offering it, what's available through the transition of these limiting beliefs and how you're guiding us through them, they affect so much more. But again, I think we hit something also at the core about the limitation around money. That again, it goes into other contracts, other wounds, other trauma, and it's being resolved. And this amplification that you're offering, and this acceleration of the transformation that is available to us, it's golden for us. So everybody, April has typed into the chat box the link on how to access the offer. You'll see it in blue. Just click on that. Or you can also open up a new browser window in case you can't find it and just type in beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Lisa26, and it'll take you to the special offer page as well. And Lisa, guide us through what those who participate, I hope everybody participates, are going to be receiving here in the different experiences that might get created.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I've said this for a while, but the time is so now because we're creating the new earth, right? So we want to let go of the old stories, let go of the old energies, clear them, release them, delete them so that we can create the life our heart desires, right? And our soul desires. And so that's really what this program is about in so many ways around money, because I know so many of you want to start businesses. Many of you are healers or have some kind of spiritual work you would like to do or something new to invent. This is the time. So when money stops us, we're not living out our soul's plan. We're not living out our purpose when we let this old energy stop us and block us. So we work on really creating expanded boundaries so we can hold the positive, powerful energy that starts to come to us. And we work on clearing so many of these ancient stories that we've had, their karmic patterns, their vows of poverty, their stories about being rich and being killed, or, not, or being alone and lonely because we have money. We have so much garbage attached to money, right? I mean, money's bad, money's evil. You must have gotten that illegally if you have money. I mean, blah, blah, blah. It's insane, and goes on for thousands of years. So we literally work on clearing and releasing all of these traumas, these vows, these contracts, these group contracts, because they really can hold us back. And so we go back also out into the greater energies and start to reclaim the wisdom, the joy, all the goodness from when we have been really abundant, when we have been completely in soul alignment with our own work. And so this is really me doing all this, 6 hours of healing for you. And it comes with a nice manual so you can read along, do the healing prayers, do the techniques that I teach. And we do a lot of work around then clearing. And the most important part to me is the reclaiming of what we know as these huge, expansive ancient souls. So getting that all back, along with, just a couple of bonuses to be able to support you with meditations and visualizations. And so, again, I just really, really believe that this is the time to transform ourselves with ease.
I agree. And to hold it also. And again, it's not just the money pattern by itself, and that by itself is liberating. But it's also the looping that we do over the worrying or the fear, a preoccupation. And if you really listen to that word, preoccupied, where you're giving your attention in advance to a problem. And so you're diminishing your energy there instead of being in that creator space that's available to you. So the preoccupation, not just the fear, not just the lack, right, but the regurgitation of that karmic loop that we've really graduated from. With just the rest of us has to catch up.
Right. We just have to get it, right? We just have to own it and know it really is true. And I believe so much of this really can be healed in an instant. And I know for most of us humans, right, it takes us a little bit longer. So it's, good to be just working through and knowing it's gone so that we can reclaim all the goodness. Mm-hmm. We have infinite connection to the universe, right? To our Akashic field, to the wisdom that we've learned through hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes, all those gifts and talents. It's time to reclaim it so that we can then step out and share it and create this new earth with ease. So letting go of our unconscious stories, our unconscious beliefs, whether it's a childhood belief or an ancestral pattern or energy or a program that's more collective. I mean, all of that is what we'll do in clearing around our limiting money beliefs in that in the program.
Yeah. I think this is so wonderful. And again, it affects so much. And we're not just doing it for ourselves. We actually get to do it for those that are in our physical environment, those that we are in attuned to as well. So it becomes more than just I'm healing this just for me, or I want to break this pattern because I'm in suffering. We're becoming even more aware of the impact that we have, as we're aware of the impact of the lineage and how it's affected us. How are we affecting the current reality within ourselves, the people around us, but also the lineage that comes after us?
Yes. Yes.
So those of us who want to damn our ancestors, to blame them, or accept their gifts as well, because there's many, and the courage that came through for them to manifest in the way they did. Acknowledge our own courage and what we've been experiencing and saying yes to as souls, and also show up in that courage with the understanding that we're changing, not just so that we can end the suffering, but that we end the suffering of the future as well.
Right. Yes. I mean, again, it's time. If it's not now, then when, right? Yeah. So
amazing what's coming through. So everybody, the price on the special offer, this is valued at $679. And again, this is extremely discounted from what Lisa typically offers it at. It's $111 on Beyond the Ordinary. I'm going to go through this program. I want to go into it because, again, that I can feel that glass ceiling breaking. And with limiting beliefs, it's a funny thing because we get to a certain point, then we hit like this oh, wait, there's something there and something wants to break through into that subconscious
Right.
or that patterning that's kind of regurgitating through the field. So we're always,
Right.
I believe we're limiting beliefs, expanding new boundaries of what's possible. And so I think this is wonderful no matter where you are.
Right.
Uh,
Hey, I
to
do this stuff for myself, right? Because, you can only heal so much in a moment for most of us. Otherwise, it unanchors us. It moves us into a place where we get kind of lost as a soul embodied. And if we get too disconnected from some of our normal patterns and our life and our physical world, then we're confused. And sometimes we actually just kind of lose it. And sometimes we, it makes it hard for us to get really re-anchored. So we usually heal in layers, and that's what works for us as humans in these bodies at the moment. So we get so far and we're doing great, but then it's like, what else? What else can there be? What else am I missing? And sometimes it's just that other layer of information that has never shown up for us before that we can, finally kind of see and feel and move into, so that we can say, oh, that's some crazy ancestral thing, or that's that wild life where I did whatever and I swore never again, And so,
well, and also becomes it comes from being this place where like, oh, I'm suffering, and so kind of being curious as to what's next. It's like, oh wow, it's like, this is interesting. I feel stuck here. Hold on a second. What's
yeah,
going on? I wonder what's on the other side. And even the shifts in our awareness on where that stagnation's taking place comes less from that trauma place and starts becoming more, it's like, I wonder what else is possible. Hold on a second.
yeah.
And that's a
Oh,
huge shift.
and because it's such a time in history that we get to do that, I think that every time we can say, what's next? What else, can I let go of? How can I know a greater truth of who I am as an infinite, wise, ancient soul and reclaim that? So every time I get a chance, which is probably every day, but, it's a, in this human world, it tends to be a perpetual kind of thing for us to do. But I see it really, we were talking about like those ceilings, those glass ceilings or walls, however they show up, breaking. I mean, this really is the time. And so instead of looking at things as, effed up or whatever, we're looking at this trauma in our world, we can be like, wow, what an opportunity. Right. We get to transform the world. And that's why we're here. And that's why we came. And so owning that, I think, is always so, so important for us as light workers, that we all are, to own that and say, yep, I'm going to do whatever I can to make that next step, to bring my gifts out, to share my awakening, to share my higher vibrational energy so that I can help to raise that energy in the world. So, I mean, it is so exciting.
It's so good, right? Y'all, the special offers there here on BTO, $111, 2 payment options. The link again is in the chat box. April just put it in there again, so you can find it easily. And I hope you take advantage of it. I'll be joining in the energy listening as well. It'll be my nighttime listening, no doubt.
Yeah.
Taking a state for sure. Lisa, I'd like to start getting into some Q&A.
Sure.
If you're open to that. So I had a question that came from Chimgi in Mongolia, excuse me. So Chimgi, hello. So Chimgi writes, my question is, even though I've cleared many past life trauma in my throat area, I'm still having blockages in my throat. How many clearings do I need to go through?
That is a good question, isn't it?
Oh, I feel that when you did that. Wow.
Yeah, there's something they're clearing. Interesting. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it really is group, because it's very much about being able to speak our truth and be seen. And some of it's in the future that they're clearing, which is always kind of interesting, but no time and space. So we have it all. So there are like other timelines, other futures, right? And they're some of them weren't so good. And some of that's really about not being able to speak our truth. And so they're recalibrating and deleting anything that doesn't serve you in your highest and best future, as well as, and some of these actually feel off planet, which I think is kind of interesting. And we almost never get this in California. We have some of those weird clouds that look like spaceships right out my window. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
look,
Okay.
they all came to visit. I love that. All of our star family is like showing up. I never get that in Marin. It's kind of weird, but true, right? Anyway, so star family showing up also along with the record keepers to help us deprogram some of this. Really stepping more fully and powerfully into who we really are. So it's even more than just being able to speak our truth. Good. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah.
And they're actually even doing, I see everybody's throat chakra turning gold. It looks like it's being, it's interesting because it looks like it's being rewired, which I think is interesting. And it seems to be rewired up into our brains even, so that there's a greater clarity of speaking our higher truth is how I get it. So that's how they're rewiring us. So great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for asking that question, and Lisa, for providing that. Let's go to a live caller now. How about we start with Jill Lyon? Welcome. Let's get you to unmute, please, and ask Lisa your question.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Of course.
My question came up earlier today. I have real challenges with visualization, and it's so much more than the emotion and the reaction. I know has to go back generations or lifetimes for me, because I get insanely enraged at trying to visualize and not being able to do it. And then I'll just take myself out. And it was a whole nother level of it today, of just really working to unthread it. And man, I just couldn't do that.
Okay, interesting. I think it's fascinating what they showed me, John, which is more connected to Hawaii. There were some traditions all over the world, definitely, where we as seers would poke out our own eyes to see better. Right?
Oh, God.
I always hated that one. I've had
it.
some of those. Yeah.
Welcome to the shamanic initiation of being of service, right?
Right. Right. So that's really, Jill, what is kind of showing up. It's like the fear of seeing and being a seer and having to be blinded again is how I got it. So let's clear that for everybody, because I bet everybody has at least one life where we've either been blinded really physically, or in some way we've been imprisoned as seers. And so being a seer can be not fun, right? I mean, it seems to us like I want to see, but
there's some things we don't want to see.
Well, there's a lot of things we don't want to see, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But some of the oracle lives where we were actually imprisoned because we could see, because we could be oracles for people, and we were really imprisoned to be that for somebody else. And so these kinds of versions of being an oracle or being a seer, being clairvoyant, there's a lot of kind of nasty old physical, emotional pain, trauma, being a slave, literally, being in prison, being blinded, all of that. So we're just clearing that through all time, space. Continuum. And then they're doing some rewiring between our kind of our third eye, our pineal, our crown, and our higher self. And actually kind of it drops down. We actually have kind of like a picture making machine energetically in our head. And they're kind of rewiring all that together. Let's wire in the clairaudience while we're at it, because I always like to make everything work together really nicely. It's great. Right. So So if it feels a little headachy to you, just hang on for a minute. It's interesting. A lot of people have kind of almost like plugs in the back of your sixth chakra, which is really the unconscious layers of every chakra. The last 4 layers is the unconscious. And so there's a lot of that as also a block. So we're just clearing that out too. I think that was causing a headache. Okay, yeah. Ooh, okay. And then they're just streaming in this beautiful golden divine source energy down from source right through, and of course our Akashic record keepers, but our higher self actually is kind of stepping in to help kind of update that we've got rings above our heads, right? We've got chakras from here to there. So they're realigning, rewiring, reorganizing all of our higher chakras or creative rings too, to balance all that in. Whew, all right. Good, that looks better. Okay. Okay. I'll see how that feels, Jill. Good question. Thank you. That's great for all of us to get rid of some of that old junk and right, clear that.
So beautiful.
Clear that away.
And Jill,
Thank you.
take a nice deep breath for all of us, just a clearing. Just
And drink lots of water.
Yeah, you're the liaison for us. Just clear us all. Take that nice deep breath for yourself and for all of us. Yeah, thank you. Amazing. Now, great question from Daniel. Daniel wants to know how he can access his Akashic, or how can one access their own Akashic?
Well, of course, there's all sorts of ways. Some people do it through meditation. Some people really, I naturally open to it through all of the kind of healing work I had done for many, many years. And I teach people. So, variety, kind of depending on how people like to learn to do things. There's a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, on the show, we teach a lot of people how to connect to their higher self, connect to their angels, connect to their guides. And we talk about the Akash and the Akashic records. Is it a similar way of the intentionality of which we choose to connect and into that library? Or is it a different aspect of choosing of being with a way that opens up the records?
To me, there's a couple of really simple tools. So of course, heart, right, is connection to source. And then I often will kind of teach people to go up to your higher self. And then from there, to move up into source energy, up into the Akashic record. It's a play space, just like everything else is. And so to me, often it's just a vibration. So once you can start to hang out, and really channel your higher self, really be in the heart energy, hold a higher consciousness, we can really through intention start to make those kind of shifts into our own Akashic record. And we can ask our record keepers, just like we ask our angels or our higher selves to help us or support us or give us information. Start to ask your record keepers, because each and every person has their very own set of record keepers, of a dozen or more record keepers. They're not human, they're not angels, they're not ascended masters, they're seriously just pure source energy keeping your records. So start talking to them, start asking them, start kind of creating these columns of light up into your higher self and up on into your Akashic records. And I like to just really start to ask for simple questions. Like, I don't want to ask a life transforming question right off the bat. Start with simple stuff until you really know you're getting information from the Akash, that it really is not your ego or anything else sidetracking you, that it really is a different vibration. And I know you'll feel it because it feels different than anything else.
Yeah.
It feels like pure love. It feels like you're wrapped in like the baby blanket of source, honestly. That's always kind of my experience. It's just yummy, like almost being able to be a baby again and be wrapped in that love. It's very pure. There's no judgment. And so I think we recognize it when we get there.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful response, Lisa. Thank you. Great question, Daniel. And for me also, there's the access that becomes available when we're in an environment or surround ourselves more consistently with other beings who are playing in that field, if you will, who are also wanting to access, have this purity of intention as to the why, and through that resonance, again, being on a call with you, taking your program, listening to somebody's podcast that holds it. By being in that environment, it helps to really expand our capacity to tap into what's true for us through that Akashic, and then knowing, feeling its truth within us. So it's a big component that's, again, readily available, but again, we have to be willing to keep asking and be persistent and consistent and open our hearts to it. And then
it's a process. That's what I always say, it's a path, it's a process. It's not magic. I mean, to me, it kind of is, because when you get it, it's fast and easy, but kind of learning and feeling what that feels like and really being able to go there. And I saw a great question, I think, from Julie about what kind of questions would you ask? So to start to ask in the Akashic records. And I often will say, ask simple questions like, how can I use Akashic information to support my life, my family, my path, my community? What can I know today to be of service? Often, to myself to start with. It's always, we always have to start at home, but to my family, to my community, to the people I'm meant to work with. Can you help me to connect and to align with the other souls that I'm here to connect with? And we start to ask these kind of opening questions that are really filled with love and service. And of course, our record keepers totally want to jump in and help us be and do that. And so those are the kind of questions I would start by asking.
Yeah, and I actually want to reframe a little bit for some of you who may think that it's a process means it's arduous in the job. There's actually like this wonder and this amazement that comes through when you start tapping in. So if you're beginning to, or if you haven't been practicing and you want to start getting into the process, there's a fun in it. There's like this mysterious, mystical awareness that starts lighting up in you, and they become pinnacle experiences that really, after a few years, become very normal for you. I'm sure a lot of this has become very normal for you. Not that you don't love being in that energy, but those like, oh my God, that was amazing. Yes.
No, it really is true. And so, even just like that feeling of being really wrapped in love is phenomenal. I mean, I have done so many readings for people when that energy encircles them, they just start to cry, and they truly are tears of joy, because it's so pure and it's so exciting. It just makes you want to do more, right? And
Right.
so and as we grow and as we raise our vibration and as we get rid of more layers of garbage, right, that we've been carrying it around, it doesn't matter how long you do it, it's still interesting, right? Like that heat that came through was weird for me, right? I'm still like, oh, I rarely feel heat like that. So it's exciting. I know that there was such a powerful, group's energy that was clearing that soul, that ancestral lineage energy that was like, wow, I never sweat, especially when it's 65 degrees outside, right? So I'm like,
It's still
oh,
happening for
that's
me. It's still running
exciting.
through me. I'm like, I am hot on the inside. What is going on? You called it earlier before we got on the call about me being hot.
No.
It's a whole energy that was coming through you. You precogged that one, which is awesome. Oh my God, y'all! I want to get into a little bit more, but before I do so, I have to remind you of the special offer with Lisa, and I really hope that you guys take advantage of it and into Lisa's work. And again, this is transforming limiting money beliefs, but from there, the preoccupation about other limiting beliefs and how one area affects everything. For me, it's huge. So, and this is a big one that's been asking to come in for a while. So the fact that I was feeling that wave of consciousness and that you just landed it with this special offer is really special for me, Lisa. So thank you. Y'all, it's $111, 2-payment option, 30-day money back guarantee, like on everything on Beyond the Ordinary. And the link is in the chat box here on the Zoom call. So click on it, get access, and you'll start receiving the downloads so you can start participating. Also, for any reason you can't find it in the chat box, just open a new browser and type in beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Lisa26, and it'll take you to that same page so you can access your special offer. And of course, we're in the replay all weekend long. You'll be able to come back and participate in some of the energy again that's running through here as the burning off, the cooling down, the clearing comes
Right.
through. So watch for an email for that. And Lisa, there's a lot of people with questions and a lot of hands that are raised, but I'm wondering if you can just close out the call today with another group process, if anything is really calling you.
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. Yeah. And that's what I was really just going to say. I mean, listen again. That's great. But if you love this kind of work, if you love being healed, hanging out, that's exactly what that whole program is you get to, hang out in this energy and get healing. So, just kind of feeling into what the record keepers feels like, a big group. It's a big group contract. Isn't that interesting? I see it more than I hear it. So it's always interesting, energy, because it comes in different ways. What they're showing me is kind of a overarching pattern that's around the whole planet, that is actually kind of acting like that glass ceiling we were talking about. It's an energy web, and I'm sure we've put tons of them into place. So this is the one that's showing up that we are connected to as this group. And we had, long time ago, many of us helped to create some of this webbing, and so we can deconstruct it together. And so that's what they want to do, because it they're saying it will help all of us to raise our vibration even higher. It's kind of like that ceiling of, for most of us, of if we look at the scale, you know how you would say love is 500, love and above. Well, that energy is hanging around 400, which is keeping most of humanity kind of stuck from popping really through and living at 5 or 6 or 700. That makes sense. That's what they're deconstructing.
Wow.
So yeah. And because there's total collective energy around the planet that had to do with this construction, whatever, thousands, who knows, could have been millions of years ago. It's really outside of that space-time thing. I'm like, okay.
Yes and yes.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody keep breathing. Because I also see it kind of, I see it as a web around the earth, but I see it also anchored into our bodies. And so it's important to, so you might feel it almost as little pricks or prickly or something, because I'm seeing like these anchors or hooks getting unhooked from
I'm
us.
feeling that exactly as you're saying that. I'm feeling like these, yeah. Like these little tiny hooks, like
they always look kind of like fish hooks to me or something like that, right? So you kind of pluck it out and it, yeah, good.
wow. Julie's feeling it too. Yeah, a lot of us are.
Yeah, interesting. Good. Oof, this is a good one to get rid of. This is make it easier for all of us to stay in the higher vibrations and not kind of get pulled and swept down by these old nets that keep kind of pulling us back down. So I am hearing that we will soar without this old netting, kind of dark vibration. Whew. Whew. All right. Feels like it's just popping open. I don't know if you feel like that's how it feels, like it's breaking and popping and dissolving. So good, good. Oh, good. Record keepers will just recycle all that energy for the highest good of all concerned. Recycle any soul contracts, group contracts, any energy that kind of was connected in those hooks or in that webbing, that will also be recycled for us. So then we get to reclaim a lot of our own energy that has been not in our bodies because it's been out doing other stuff that wasn't even useful. So you may have a nice new like burst of energy in the morning
So
after
wonderful.
a good night's sleep. Yeah. Whew, good. So let's just fill everyone up with all of their highest Akashic energy and light. Your whole body, your energy field, your auric field. All the beautiful energy and information we can now hold. And we thank all of the Akashic masters who have been here working with us today. And we close and lock the Akashic records for now. And so it is. Blessed be.
And so it is. Oh, beautiful. I'm going to answer a very practical question for someone that asked the question here in the webcast. The special offer, it includes some bonuses. And the bonuses are a 2-hour Q&A, which was pre-recorded about the Akashic clearings. There's a guarded, guided, and protection energy meditation. You can read more about that. And there's a 25% off of a session with Lisa. So the package doesn't include a 1-hour session with Lisa, because at $111, she would go crazy nuts with callers. And even though it'd be wonderful for all of us, but a 25% discount on it, it's worth the package of the price alone. And so that's included as part of a bonus also. And I do highly recommend the session with Lisa. Again, you should have seen people lining up at the Conscious Life Expo. It was amazing. I saw them going in and then going on. They look different between time in and out, but it's really cool. So again, the special offer links in the chat box. Again, take advantage of that. And Lisa, this has been so wonderful. I can feel so much moving, and again, to reconnect with you again in this way after almost a year and a half is so good. So thank you for what you're bringing through. Thank you for bringing your anchoring energy to those sacred places. I'm very attuned to how profound that work is and how it anchors in for so many of us to receive through the grid line. So thank you for that as well. And again, thank you for your generosity with the special offer as well.
It's always a joy to be with you, John, and to share this work and to do this group healing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and doing this, because it really will shift the world. These are some of the ways we will transform into this beautiful new earth that we're in the process of creating. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, John. It really is a pleasure to get to hang out with you for a little bit.
As always, always. And again, as Lisa stated so beautifully, just thank you all. And I look forward to seeing you on the next call. Until then, have a blessed night.